I'm on like a couple of these like 80s and 90s music, pages on Facebook or whatever.
Yeah.
So people are always posting different cassettes and things like that. Every time I see a cassette, first of all, I think, do you have Tim 1 and 2 still
I
somewhere?
I think they're in a bin in the basement somewhere.
I
Yeah.
think I asked you. Some of my finest early artwork, in my opinion.
True.
That was fun to do, old color pencil stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, that made me thinking about cassette tapes, record players, and it flashed me back immediately to like our first little tape deck. I feel like everybody had one. That little rectangle that
Oh, yeah, for
sat on
sure.
the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you had them in school too, right?
Well, yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. Big headphones on them. That's all
Yeah.
we had. That was
Yeah.
like top of technology. And you'd have to push the two buttons
Yes. To
to
record.
get it to
It was
record.
2 buttons. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I'm trying to remember. Well, I know we both tried to record things off the radio.
Yeah. Oh, everyone our age did.
And if we ever had to do it with that sitting next to a radio, or by the time we were kids,
Yeah.
all of our radios had a tape deck in them.
Yes.
So that was a little easier, but still, you'd have
Yeah.
to sit there next to the radio
Yep.
and then just listen to the DJ talk and hope he was going to announce it. And then, chung,
Right.
play it.
Or you hear the first note and instantly know what it is and can push the button at the same time, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And then the reason you did that was so that you could play it back and pause it or stop it to write down all the words.
Get all
So
the
you
lyrics.
you
Yep.
had to write down all the lyrics so that you could make sure you were singing along and learned all the lyrics.
That also sent me straight back to some moment like in youth group where somebody was like asking everybody if they knew this lyric because trying to get them written down on paper, I don't know why. It's
Right.
just all we had to do back
Yeah.
then.
Well, you couldn't look it up on the internet.
Couldn't look it up. Yep.
And if it was a new song, you didn't have like the official LP that may, if you were lucky, have had the lyrics to all the songs printed inside.
Yep.
On the jacket.
Well, that little tape deck flashed me right back to my grandma Bepler. I don't know if anyone in this your family did this, but she would write letters to us.
Mm-hmm.
And then she would also, this must have been when they were in Florida, record a cassette tape of her talking and then send it to us. And that was like her audio letter.
Wow.
And then I guess we would record one and send it back. In retrospect, pretty cool thing.
It's kind of like what we're doing with this podcast.
It's kind of like early text messaging, FaceTime, but really delayed.
Yeah. So cool.
Yeah.
I love it.
So you had one of those.
Yeah.
And then did you have a record player?
Yeah, I had a stereo and I think I got it for like Christmas it must have been when I was in about 5th grade. So it had the record player, it had a dual tape deck, and then like the detachable speakers. Oh yeah.
Did you have one with a disco light panel?
No. Disco light panel.
I'm pretty sure my friend Larry Klusak that I live next to had one of those. And then the top came off and it had like 16 colored squares on it or something. You don't have a friend with one of those?
No.
And then it would like flash the little lights just on a little panel.
Yeah.
Like probably 12 by 12 or something. And that was like the coolest thing back then.
No, I didn't know anybody that had one of those. That's pretty cool.
Well, I know I had some little record player. The only thing I remember playing on it were these G.I. Joe storybook things, which I still have. And I thought they'd be worth a lot more than they are. But it's pretty cool. It was a book with a record in the back that you play and read along to.
Super cool.
Things that we had back then.
Yeah.
Our kids are so spoiled now.
Mm-hmm.
Just pull it up on the computer, listen to any song in the world.
Anything they could think of.
That's all I wanted back then.
I know.
Welcome to Becoming Chicken Pop, a podcast about our family, past and present, or our family in the future.
We discuss family, marriage, faith, and all the things that made us Chicken Pop.
doing the finger dancing this week, Jody. Do I need to give you a second?
I'm good. I just, I didn't see you put those fingers up, so I wanted to make sure we got it in there. One of the topics of conversation that's come up repeatedly the last few weeks that I'm really starting to lean into and enjoying.
Yeah, you are.
Is the idea of chick math, aka girl math. And if you're on the internet at all, you've probably seen countless reels and memes about girl math, and I love every single one of them.
It's more politically correct for me to say chick math.
Yes.
Because it applies to just us.
Right. Yes. But I love it.
Well, that's flowing right into my smile, one of my smiles of the week.
Oh, well,
because they're very specific examples. The first one was we got some Amazon package that I had to haul in, set next to the door. I'm like, what is this?
It was a big, heavy package.
Yeah. I said, what is this? And it was, I don't even remember what it is now.
It's shelves that we're going to use for toys in the basement.
Okay. I said, well, how long is this going to take me to put together? And Jody said, well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to save you an hour by not starting to put it together. Because our usual path here is Jody digs in, just starts putting screws into it. I find the directions elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And then she stops halfway because it's not working anymore. So then I go back and I detach a couple things, take some random screws out of holes that I don't know where they came from, honestly, put it back together, and that's kind of our process.
Yep.
So by not doing that, she saved me an hour of time.
I mean, it's an hour you're going to get back out of this weekend that you wouldn't have otherwise had.
That's the chick math right there.
Absolutely.
I should be appreciative of that. So thank you for letting me build it on my own.
You are welcome. You are welcome.
That's actually a pretty honest thank you. So
yeah.
You have another one that you're leaning into about Amazon.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because we were just talking about a couple little weekly budget catch-up things or whatever, and you said, I want you to know that I'm being really good with Amazon. I haven't ordered anything. I took stuff out of my cart. So I'm being really good about Amazon. And then as you walked away, today, and then ducked out of the door to go get groceries or something.
Yeah. So, again, back to this idea of chick math, I saved you $150 because I removed from my cart completely $150 worth of items from Amazon. Didn't buy them, didn't even leave them in my cart.
Today.
That was yesterday. Today is a new day. Look out.
I thought I could get an extra day out of it. Well, I'm not, because I think we're going to get tennis shoes today. So you got a choice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, all right. Well, one of my smiles, from the last week is, it's Miles related. I know everyone loves the Miles stories. So Shelby had a doctor's appointment after school, and it was going to be tight on whether she would wrap up this doctor's appointment and be able to pick up Miles from daycare on time. So I was kind of on call. So Shelby was explaining to him that morning on the way to daycare that, what was going on. And I get a text from her that morning, and it said, I told Miles this morning you would grab him if the appointment takes a long time. And he said, I hope it takes long. Which just made me like all warm and fuzzy and smile and giggle all at the same time. I hope it takes long. So.
That is a subtle comment, but really big on where you stand in his brain.
Yeah.
That's pretty great.
Priceless.
Mm-hmm.
My other smile from the last week or two that I think you share is Shelby taught Miles to do parkour. So I think they had a snow day and they were at home, just the two of them. And we get this video and you can hear Shelby kind of breathing hard, half laughing. And she says, Miles, show me your parkour. And so he runs around their sectional in the basement, like throws himself onto the ottoman, rolls over it, hops off and yells, Park 4. And Shelby dies laughing. So anyway, Miles Park 4. And Shelby's laughing. I don't know. It's hard to know which one was our favorite part of the video, but we've watched it like 50 times.
And even before that, just the way he runs is classic.
Oh, it's like more elbows than anything else. When he runs, when he dances, when he jumps.
Mm-hmm. It's like his giant head doesn't move at all.
He's got the Bepler head. The poor kid. Oh. So anyway, we've definitely had some good smile moments lately. Well, let's jump into this episode. Episode 3, season 2. And I'd love to dive into a topic that I'm calling parenting on purpose. Talking a little bit about our experiences with parenting, how those have shifted, what we've learned, what we did well, what we didn't do well, cringeworthy moments, kind of all the things parenting today. You game?
Sure.
Awesome. All right. I think, the first kind of area that I would love to get your take on is, and this could be interesting, think about some of the best and worst parenting advice that we ever received.
Well, I'm just going to kind of come clean on the person I was back then. Well, let's be honest, it still sticks with me a little bit. And as far as advice went, not just parenting, but kind of everywhere, I think I would just had a little too much pride, not thinking that I could do things perfectly, but I just didn't want to hear it from people. I didn't want to hear it from my mom. I didn't want to hear it from people in our church that were never married, never had kids, and like to offer unsolicited advice. But really, unfortunately, it was part of my whole attitude back then that I didn't want to hear it. And if you told me, I'd kind of not really bad and rebellious stuff, but I'd kind of go the other way or just try to ignore it.
Yeah.
So hopefully it doesn't disqualify me from this whole part of the conversation, but I'm just letting you know where my head was then.
Okay.
So maybe put that in the fail column right away.
I think one of the pieces of advice, and I'm sure everyone, whether you're a parent or not, you've heard this advice, and it's not just true in parenting, but I think that I really undervalued, even though it's so true, it's this idea of picking your battles. Like not every single thing can be a teaching moment. It's not always the right moment for a teaching moment. It's not always worth the time, the effort, the emotional output, like you really do have to pick those battles and those moments wisely. And that was something you were much better at than I was. I think there were definitely times where you had to remind me like, okay, is this really this big of a deal kind of thing? So it was kind of a hard lesson, I think, for me to learn. I still don't think that I'm great at it, but I think you're much better at it. Like I'm more emotional, so I tend to react more emotionally to anything and everything than you do. And so when you're in that emotional state, it's harder to step back and say, oh, is this the right time? Is this the right conversation? Is this where I really want to focus right now? Yeah.
But again, the meeting in the middle part, I could probably be that way to a fault.
Yes.
And then there were times we did need to jump in. We did need to speak up. Yeah. And that's where you were better. So that's where we met in the middle.
We did.
As we've done so many times.
Yeah.
Making each of us better.
I think another one of the old ones, I'm just going to throw a couple of these like old ones is, that you've heard from older generations and they get passed down through the years is don't pick that baby up every time they cry. You're going to spoil them. And let me just say, I just think that's utter BS. You're not going to spoil an infant. It's impossible. And, if there's anyone out there that still disagrees with that, I don't know that you've ever had an infant in your care, I think when it comes to that type of thing, like you follow your instincts, you follow your gut. If your baby's crying and you want to pick them up, pick them up. Like,
Hmm. But I think you tempered that well with knowing when they needed to cry it out.
yes,
I mean, that's pretty important too.
it is. Yeah.
Because, I mean, it
Well, they
can,
have to learn to self-soothe at some
yeah.
point, right? Yeah. Yeah.
But there comes a time when you know they're working it, and then that's,
Oh, for
yeah.
sure. Right. Yeah. You know when the cry is real and they need comfort and when it's attention seeking in a negative way. Some of the parenting advice, and I don't remember really explicit, like somebody saying this to me. I think it was something that we just saw modeled before us, maybe a little bit, is the idea of not rushing to rescue your kids from every situation where there's conflict or trouble or uncomfortableness, you know? And I think that's actually something that we did really well that I'm proud of as parents. You know, today you hear a lot of talk about helicopter parents and kids don't know how to resolve conflict because parents step in and just fix everything and they're in constant rescue mode and kids don't know how to regulate, they don't know how to address conflict, they don't know how to be uncomfortable and work through it.
Hmm.
And I think we were very deliberate in not stepping in all the time. We were there and we would help them figure it out, right? But at the same time, I'm not just going to come in and solve all your problems for you and have you be a passive participant in it.
I think I have something similar to that that we that we're going to discuss. But I mean, first of all, was there any advice you thought was terrible, or advice you wish someone would have given you?
Mm. I wish someone or more people would have told me to trust my instincts. That as a mom, you're going to know what your baby needs, what your child needs. You know your child better than anyone else in this world, and you need to trust yourself. I'm not sure anyone ever told me that, and I believe that to be true to the core of me.
Hmm.
I wish I would have had that encouragement from other people in my life.
Do you think you got that indirectly from anyone, like from your Aunt Linda or people that we knew?
I don't know. I think I got the opposite.
Which we've said lots of times is just as valuable
Yeah.
in learning,
Yeah, I think I
unfortunately.
got the opposite. Like, oh, well, I got a lot of unsolicited advice about doing things a way I didn't want to do them and responding in ways that I didn't find to be helpful or authentic or so I think I got the opposite more than anything. Like, oh, you need to turn to other people that have been in similar situations. And while there is value in that, every kid is different, every parent-child relationship is different, you know. Yeah.
I This may not tie in directly to this particular moment of this topic, but when we were talking about just observing things that we knew we
Mm,
didn't want to do,
mhm.
one was like overparenting other people's kids.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
Oh, I'm so glad you
I
brought that
mean,
up.
not to pick on your family first, because it happened at our church too a
Yeah.
lot,
Yeah.
but your family was like kind of just a family of real family and extra family and
Mhm.
lots of kids running around, and there were like multiple parents just yelling at kids that
Right.
weren't their own,
Right.
and the parents might have been right there.
Yeah.
So that was like one of those indirectly people gave me advice that I did want to follow on that one.
Mhm.
So let me handle my kids, you
Right.
handle your kids, unless there's danger involved, of course,
Right. Of
step in.
course. Yes.
But if it's just something you don't like, your preference, let let the parents handle it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's something I think, I mean, I think it was actually like a trigger for me if we were in a situation and I was right there and someone else stepped in to
Oh,
correct
you were
our
a mama bear
kids.
big time.
I do not like that. I don't agree with that. If a parent is in the room, it is their responsibility to parent. I mean, even with Miles now, if you and I were in a room with Miles and Zach and Shelby and Miles was hitting or doing something like outrageous, I'm going to let Zach and Shelby handle that situation.
Absolutely.
Unless Miles is sticking his finger in a light socket and I'm the only one that sees it, obviously I'm going to stop him,
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it is not my job to parent Miles, And I'm not going to disrespect Zach and Shelby in that way. And I'm also going to preserve that relationship with Miles. That's not my role in his life.
Mm-hmm.
Any other best and worst parenting advice you want to chime in on?
No, I told you. We're lucky to get
Okay.
one out of me there
Okay.
accidentally.
All right. So then, one of the other things that I think is interesting, I think, as we look back with grown kids now, I think we can look back and say, wow, we did some things right. Like I'm going to count these in the win column.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think there's some things we learned along the way. I'm not necessarily going to
Of
call them
course.
losses, but
Mm-hmm.
there are some things that weren't great. So what's something you think that we got right as parents that we wouldn't go back and change? What did we do that was right?
Yeah. Well, I wanted to save this for this question. You kind of started, you hit on it, but it was like one of them was really making them handle their own
Mm.
issues as much as we can.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I can think of specific situations with coaches where
Yep.
they thought they were being treated unfair, teachers where they thought something wasn't right.
Mm-hmm.
And demand is a hard word, but we demanded that they talk to them first. We're on their team when needed. They're our kids. We love them,
Mm-hmm.
but we wanted them to have that skill. We wanted them to start early with dealing with their problems and learning how to
Mm-hmm.
do that. And it was so awesome. The few times we got them to do that,
Yeah.
they came back and it was like they they listened to me.
Yep.
They understood, and we're going to work on this and this and this. And
Yeah.
it's like you could just see the light bulb on over their head of talking this out one on one with a person without talking about it to everyone else.
Yeah.
Like was magic. On
Yeah.
such a better level with the person now.
Well,
So
and
I
you
think
could
that was a great one.
yeah, and you could see like the sense of pride that they took, like, I handled this, like, okay.
Hmm.
And like their confidence, like what a huge boost in like confidence for them each time they had to face a situation like that, right? Like, okay, I can do this. I can have the hard conversations. I can do hard things. And I feel good about it.
And
Yeah.
we saw the flip side of it, of
Yes.
parents that stepped in every situation, and it just got to be by the time they were in high school and beyond, they expected it. They
Mm-hmm.
didn't know how to handle anything.
Right.
I mean, really, I'm not overstating that, to
No,
the
it's
point
true.
of essentially writing their papers and dealing with teachers and all
Yep.
that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but a huge payoff when they got to college and adulthood. So that was,
Yeah.
again, I'm putting that solid in the win column.
Mm-hmm.
How about you?
I think for me, I think one of the things that really stands out that I think we did right was teaching our kids that there are natural consequences,
Hmm.
right? And that's a spectrum of things. If you jump off of something that's 4 feet in the air, you may stick the landing or you may get hurt. And that's a natural consequence, right? Or if you don't do your homework, there's going to be a natural consequence when you go into school and you don't turn in your homework the next day,
Hmm.
right? And so I think that we did a pretty good job of allowing our kids to face those natural consequences in life, is a way to teach them responsibility. And like you always have a choice, how you show up, how you behave, how you talk to people, the work that you do. Like you always have a choice, and there's going to be a consequence for each choice you make. It may be good, maybe bad.
I, I can remember trying to be like the tough guy and saying, "You ever end up in jail drunk? I'm leaving you there that night."
Uh-huh.
I never had to make that decision, but
Yeah.
I feel like I wanted to
Oh, I
if they were
absolutely would have.
safe.
They would have spent the night in jail
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. But yeah, I
that would have
think
been the extreme example there.
Yes. Well, and it goes into, and so now, and we didn't know this now, but, obviously, having a daughter-in-law in early childhood education, there's this concept even of like dangerous play,
Hmm.
right? And that's, you have to let your kids take risks even when they're playing. So they learn their physical boundaries, what they're capable of, what's safe, what's not. Like you have to let them have that dangerous play. It's a natural part of the learning process. And we didn't kind of have that language back then, but I think we still subscribe to that. So instead of saying, oh, that's too high, don't do that, I'm afraid you're going to get hurt, you're like, okay, we're going to see how this goes. Let me know if you need some help, right?
Can you see me smirking?
I can.
You probably know what I'm thinking then.
Go for it.
Just the difference in our kids.
Yeah.
Zach had very different limits with the danger play. Like,
Yes.
you probably shouldn't do that, Zach.
Yeah.
You can try it, but you probably shouldn't do it. On the flip side, parents would be like, "Do you know where Toby is?" Oh yeah, he hangs off stuff like that all the time. It's fine.
Yeah.
Because serious monkey boy
Yeah.
gymnastics, he would
Yeah.
literally climb
Right.
a pole in the middle of the yard or be up on a roof
Yep.
instantly. So that was just one of those funny memories for myself.
Well, and the thing between the two of them is Toby to this day is more likely to be the one doing those risky physical things. Zach is much more cautious because he knows his own limitations now. Where Toby also knows that he's achieved these
Hmm.
riskier behaviors, right? He has different physical limits than Zach does.
You call that wisdom on Zach's part,
Uh-huh.
knowledge on Toby's part, right?
Is that what we do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Zach has the wisdom to know not to try it. Toby
Right.
has the knowledge to
Yep.
know he can pull it off. But
Exactly.
they're both getting older, and I can't wait.
Oh.
Got anything else that stands out to you that maybe we feel we did right?
Um, I think one of the other things that I'll just mention about that, and I think it's something that I think it's a progressive learning, but I think it's learning to let go as they get older, right? So,
Hmm.
like as a parent, when your child turns 18 and they go away to school or whatever it is, that's not the point that you decide, okay, now I'm going to let go. Or when they get married, now I'm going to let go. It's this idea of like gradually letting go and letting them make more decisions, being confident in their ability to make those decisions. And I think we did that pretty well, right? The idea of like gradually letting them take on more responsibility, make their own choices, not hovering.
I think you did it better than me for a while. Um, because
That surprises me.
well, I had a tendency to want to parent them like they were me at that age, and
Mm.
I was the kid that never wanted to do anything wrong. I never wanted
Mhm.
to get in trouble,
Mhm.
so I didn't.
Yeah.
Our kids are a little more were a little more natural in growing up, where
Yeah. They're a
they're
little more
gonna they're gonna
adventurous.
try it and they're gonna make their own mistakes and
Right.
decide what was good and was bad. Um, and I just didn't have to go through that.
Right.
So I had to realize they were not me
Right.
and they're gonna push some limits.
Yeah.
And maybe I just turned my head to it.
Mhm.
I know hearing things they told me now that
Mhm.
they scammed me pretty good or they snuck around me pretty good. Um, but over time I realized that's so many people's path through their teenage years,
Yeah.
and the way
Yeah.
that they learned.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, we obviously had different childhood family cultures, and I think you were more naive to what they were doing than I was.
Apparently. Yeah.
Yes.
So I've heard.
And I think our boys would probably be surprised at how much I knew was actually going on behind the scenes, where they thought that they were pulling. And I'm not saying our boys were getting into trouble, nothing like that. Like what they were doing was very typical things. Like, for example, Did Zach really think that he was going to Adam Schoonmaker's and they were playing lemon pong in the garage on weekends? Did he really think I believed that they weren't playing beer pong? No, absolutely not. But you know what? They were in one place. Nobody was driving. Like, that's one of those things where kids, they have to learn. They have to learn what their boundaries are, what they're going to say yes and no to, you know? Yeah. So I think our boys would be surprised at how much I actually knew what was going on that they thought they were getting away with.
Well, I kind of always hated that narrative there and still do about I'd rather have him here drinking and being safe. I get it on one hand, the other hand, I hate the enabling part of it. But
Yeah.
we'll we'll move on from that.
Yeah.
That's again, that's not something I ever dealt with growing up,
Yep.
so I didn't expect or look for it. So
Yeah.
um and again, we'll call that a fail on my part. I'll own up to that.
Yeah.
But but
I
I
think.
I think a good thing though, we can
Mm-hmm.
focus on that. I don't think this stuck out as much to you because you were pretty ambitious and motivated
Mm-hmm.
throughout high school and your life.
Mm-hmm.
That's just who you were.
Yeah.
And I was ready to take the easy road if anybody told me I could. And
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, my dad was kind of that guy.
Yes.
Loved him to death. And
Yeah.
I loved his understanding and everything that.
Mm-hmm.
But as I get older, I thought he probably could have pushed me a little more. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I, I can remember so many times, um, so many times. I
Mm-hmm.
can remember times being in my room doing homework and it would be getting late and I was having trouble with it, struggling. And too many times, like, you can't be expected to do this homework and they shouldn't be giving you this homework and blah, blah, blah. And which is kind of what hurt him in school, let's be honest.
Mm-hmm.
So, because of that, I felt more of a need to push our boys a little bit,
Yeah.
to step out, to do their best, work a little bit harder, try the thing, go for it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that all just kind of came easy
Yeah.
for Zach in the
Yeah.
scope of just being a good student and all that stuff. But even at that, I think he would like to take the easy road
Yes.
naturally.
He definitely did when he was younger. I
Hmm.
think I think that has definitely shifted in him as an adult,
Yeah,
for
yeah,
sure.
definitely. I
Yeah.
mean, once he started getting out of
Once he got into
into advanced
college
degrees and
and
stuff, yeah,
right. Yeah.
then he was right on it. But that pushing with Toby,
Mm-hmm.
it started early with like
Yeah.
student council or something in middle school, I
Mm-hmm.
think. And then a couple other things where he'd talk about it, really, you should try it.
Yeah.
Try swimming.
Yeah.
And it just got, I am going to try it.
Yeah.
And then he went for it and he did all these things that I never would have expected,
Yeah.
even in college
Yep.
and beyond, just
Mm-hmm.
real leadership stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really, we were never overbearing and I don't think they hate us for it. I know they don't hate us for it.
Yeah.
Um, like you see on TV, nothing was ever good enough for my dad.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was good enough for their dad, but I wanted them to push. I wanted to try and experience
Yeah.
and not have the regret of not doing it later.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And I think my perspective is I I think in hindsight, when I was younger, I didn't really have anyone pushing me beyond what I wanted to do, was comfortable with.
no,
And
that's why I said I think you
yeah,
were fortunate to just have that wired in your brain.
right. And so I think with our boys, I mean, every parent sees the potential in their child, right? Better than anyone else. You see the potential, you know what they're capable of. And for me, I wanted to challenge our boys a little bit. Like, okay, if this is what you want to do, that's great. But what if, right? If you had to stretch yourself a little bit more, what else are you capable of? What else is out there? Like, you can really achieve more than maybe what you think you can today. So how can we how can we challenge them? So I definitely think that was part of it. And then also, like, I think we just always instilled that sometimes things are going to be hard, and you're
Mm-hmm.
going to have to work hard to get you where you want to go. And as long as you're putting in the effort, like, we are with you 100%. But if you're not putting in the effort, that's not good enough for us.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're not giving it your all, if you're not living up to your potential, we're not okay with that. You know, I think we always told them, like, grades are a very subjective thing, but we know what you're capable of. And so our standards are going to be different than, what the school says the standards are for you to be able to play in this sport. Like, you may have to have a C in this class, but that's not good enough for us. Right?
Yeah, fortunately, that's another one we never really had to deal with. But
Well, there was one time in middle school where Zach, I don't even remember what exactly it was, but they had weekly progress reports, and he was playing, I think it was 8th grade basketball. Mike Devlin was the coach, and there was something in his progress report where technically, according to the school, it was good enough, but it didn't meet our standards, and he had to miss a game. Or maybe it was he didn't turn in a homework assignment.
I think that was it.
I think that was it. And according to the school, he could play, and we were like, no.
You knew it wasn't like
It's not performance
related,
based. It was laziness.
because that was never his issue.
It
Yeah,
was laziness.
it was something dumb, like not turning anything.
Yeah.
Which Toby used to call him at the time. He's the dumbest smart kid I know.
He did. Yes. That is not true anymore, Zach.
It's not.
It's not at all. But you definitely had those moments when you were a teenager, for sure. All right. Let's talk about some of those. Maybe there's some moments for you where we had those things like we swore in our idealism about parenthood, we're never going to do this, and totally ended up doing, or, some of those cliche parentisms that we swore we'd never say and we did. Do you have anything like that?
I can remember looking back on, like, TV time as one of those things. And these days it would probably be device tablet time, that everybody says we're going to limit this.
Right.
And then it just kind of sneaks in. Well, that was the kind of the thing with TV and video games when our kids were that age.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of wanted to control what they were viewing a
Mm-hmm.
lot.
Or listening to. That was
Yeah.
another big thing.
Yeah. I mean, the TV part, this is a whole other conversation. It's never been like a real issue for me, where if I hear something on a show or a movie, it sticks with me forever in a negative way. Um, but I was always like a garbage in, garbage out
Mm-hmm.
dad with them. Like, this is what you're listening to. This is what you're gonna
Mm-hmm.
say. And then it just kind of snuck in where we started watching things with more and more language in it. And I'd be like, I don't want to hear it. Come
Mm-hmm.
out of you,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And I don't think I ever heard, well, I didn't. I never heard it come out of them. I know it was just out there with friends and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's not like a super hard fail, I
Yeah.
think, but it's one of the things I said we were gonna do, and it just, it gradually takes up more and more time.
Yep.
So, what about you?
I don't know if there's anything hard and fast that we said we're never going to do this as parents, and we did. I don't really feel like there's anything big like that sticks out to me.
Kind of along the same lines, things we'll never do. There was also cliches that would come up with parenting.
Mm-hmm.
And this one's been around forever.
Yeah.
What are you listening to? You call that music? And
Mm-hmm.
that one, because that's so personal to me,
Yeah.
music sticks in my head. And if I hear it, it's just going to keep playing.
Yeah.
Rent free, as we say these days.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I really did get critical about their music when I would hear it.
Yep.
And they would pick on me about it all the time.
Yep.
But I tried to take a harder line on that.
Yep.
And it's a little less about some of the language these days, because I understand
some of it's cultural.
some of it's cultural. That's all I ever knew. That's how they speak
right
forever. but the content,
Yes.
you know, and I know, like Zach likes a fair amount of rap stuff that
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, there's no redeeming quality to this. I
Mm-hmm.
don't get it.
Yeah.
Makes me feel old, but
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the cliches
Right.
of
Yeah.
growing up with kids.
Yep.
What are you listening to?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll probably never get over that one, but
It's interesting. I mean, and this is kind of another kind of question or kind of conversation point that just came to my mind that I'd like to talk about and explain. Maybe have you explain our position on swearing, curse words, and kind of our stance on that as parents, what we told our boys about the language that we choose to use, or don't use.
well, my quick and easy one that I always use on the boys was just sound dumb
Mm-hmm.
when you say that word or
Mm-hmm.
these words. It's like you can't process how to say a complete sentence without. At the time, I was working with someone where they would literally drop the F bomb in at the beginning of a sentence, and
Mm-hmm.
then just in between, it was like their or their pause.
Yeah.
Um, and it really did make them sound dumb.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
can you use that word anymore?
What?
Dumb.
I,
Who knows?
it's our podcast.
I'm
You can say
sticking
whatever
with
you
it
want.
because that was my easy
Yeah.
description of it, which I thought they're both intelligent boys. They
Yep.
didn't want to sound that way.
Mm-hmm.
So find a different way to communicate. And I never spoke that way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it really is one of those habits
It
that the
is.
longer you
It
go,
is a habit.
it's just not.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, both ways. The
Yeah.
more you're in it and it's accepted, which is one of the reasons I harped on music
Mm-hmm.
and some shows that they were watching, just
Mm-hmm.
because I know the more you hear it, the easier it is for it to come out. So
Yep.
on the flip side, that was never part of my growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I feel like maybe I dabbled once, like,
Mm-hmm.
this is no big deal. And I was like, it's just too much work.
Yeah.
Like even trying to use it naturally. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just never been part of my life. And
Yep.
I know you have circumstances,
Mm-hmm.
situations. So
Yeah.
tell me that.
So, I mean, one of the things that I used to tell our boys when it came to swearing, using curse words, is there are thousands of words for you to choose from. You are intelligent. Find a better way to say it. Because that is not the most descriptive, better way to say it 99.9% of the time. There's one of my made up statistics for you.
Sure.
I think it's applicable, right? So you are smart. You are well spoken. That's what I want to hear come out of your mouth, right? There are better ways to express yourself. And so, I mean, my family, there's swear words. It's not every other word the way a lot of people are. The F bomb was like a really, really big one that I heard occasionally, but not very often. Like
Hmm.
that was still very taboo, like in the 80s and 90s, right? I mean, you never heard it in public, walking through a grocery store or the people sitting behind you in a restaurant the way you do everywhere you go now.
Hmm.
Um, and so I think for me, and I think what you're asking me to speak to is I do think that there are times that I would use a curse word to make an impact.
Hmm.
Like when that is going to make a big impact, grab the attention that you want it to grab, right? And so I'm trying to think, there was an example where I don't even remember the word that I used, but I was having a conversation with Zach. He was in high school and it was regarding someone. It was a personal situation, relationship situation where he was struggling, and I think I told him like you need to let go until this person can just get their shit together. Like,
Mm-hmm.
this is a bad situation. And I don't know if he'd ever heard me swear up until that point in his life, because it's just not something that's a part of my regular
Mm-hmm.
language, right? But it was like,
I'm not sure I had.
oh, like this is really like it made an impact and an impression, like, and it conveyed the gravity of the situation that I was trying to communicate. So I do think, like, for me, there are times that like I will use a curse word if it's going to cause the impact that I'm intending it to, and there's no other way to communicate that.
Honestly, I think that's your only one.
Oh no, there are definitely times where I've called people an asshole because
Oh,
there's no other description that fits it better than that. You know that.
yeah.
That's probably my other one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just an interesting thing. And I think it's one of those parenting decisions, right? And you know what? There are a lot of parents that curse in front of their kids, and that's fine. Like, you do you make the decisions that you feel good about that are right for your family. For us, this was the approach that we took, and I stand by it.
In my family, it was so taboo, you couldn't even mention it in a quoting situation.
Yeah.
So I'm a little past it there now, where
Yeah. Yeah.
if I'm just telling you something that happened,
Say it.
I'll say it
Mm-hmm.
as it was used in the situation or quote. But
Right.
it's really it's really never in my radar to use.
Yeah.
Um, if I drop something or kick something,
Yeah.
I'm glad it's a habit. But
Yeah.
some people will tell me that's the only way I get over something, though.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that.
Yeah.
But if that works for you, then go for it.
All right. Is there anything that you'd go back and tell your younger parenting self, having survived, having raised two responsible adults?
I think your initial misconception is that their success and failure depends all on how you raise them.
Mm,
And it can certainly help and it can definitely hurt, but we're not that in control.
mm-hmm.
Um, so I might have had, you might have fears early that they'll be irresponsible or wild or crazy or something, but um, they may or not be, and it might not have anything to do with you. So
Yeah. They're going to make their own
do the
choices
best you
in
can.
life, right? I think for me, I think it's just reinforcing the idea of pick your battles, don't sweat the small stuff. Like focus on things that are going to build character, that reinforce the values that are important to your family. Like, if it doesn't apply to one of those things, then you can probably let it go.
Hmm. That's kind of your nutshell for this whole thing, isn't it? It's been a
Yeah,
kind of recurring
I think so.
theme here for you.
Like, pick the things that are most important. What are the things that you really want to instill in your children, right? It's the shared values that you have, that you've established as a family. Is it building into the character traits that you want your children to have? And if if it doesn't apply to one of those things, then it's probably not important.
Hmm. Well, if there's something I could go back and do more of, and Zach and Shelby do this great with Miles,
Mm-hmm.
is just talk directly about certain things. For my family, you would have to dance around that word
Yes.
forever trying to figure out what you're talking about.
Right.
Let's
It is
let's
what it
just
is.
communicate. It's not
Let's just be
dirty.
clear. It's
It's
not.
just let's say what we're going to say. Going back, it would have been much easier just to let's talk about your language. Let's talk about alcohol. Let's
Mm-hmm.
talk about porn that's going to show up for you
Yes.
from somewhere, whether you're going down a rabbit hole
Whether
at
you're
a
looking
friend's
for it or
house.
not, you're going to be
Yeah.
confronted by it.
And I did have some of those talks, especially
Yes.
with Zach.
Yes.
But it could have just been so much easier just to be direct and let's talk about it anytime, all the
Mm-hmm.
time,
Mm-hmm.
and not save it for some weird
Big
uncomfortable moment.
moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
It should be a daily, I mean, it just should be part of your culture.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you what, Toby has always been great at that.
Yes.
To your chagrin, a little
Yeah.
bit, because he would always call you on comments and say why and let's talk about
Mm-hmm.
it, and
Mm-hmm.
he would just fire it off and say exactly what he's thinking.
Yeah.
Very good at that kid,
Yep.
for being kind of quiet.
Right.
Um, but that's definitely something I could have done better
Yeah.
when we were earlier parenting.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. There's 2 points, and there was one with each of our boys that I just want to touch on really quick because I think they both relate to the same thing, and they were big learning moments for me as a parent. So one of them was, um, it was Zach's senior year. It was his kind of senior farewell concert at the end of the school year. And I remember after the concert, we were standing in the cafeteria at the high school, and I was asking him about his plans. He's like, well, we're going to go to the bonfire at blah, 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 and then blah, blah, blah. And he had to be somewhere like the next morning. Like, I don't know if he had a final or something. Basically, he wanted to be out most of the night. I was like, I don't know. Is this really a good idea? And I stopped and I let him go. And it was really hard because I was like, oh, I know what's going to be happening at this bonfire, and he's going to show up and the next morning. And, but like I stopped and I let him go. And that was one of those like moments for me that I wish I would have recognized those moments of letting go sooner in those conversations. And the one with Toby that stands out to me, and you probably remember this, I remember it was like the summer he graduated and he was headed off to college, and he was choosing his classes for his first semester at Grand Valley.
I was going to mention this earlier.
And I was looking at his course lineup and I was like, Toby, do you really want to take all these classes together? This is going to be a lot. Maybe you should spread them out. And I mean, we kind of had this argument about it, and I finally had to relent and like, okay, he's going to make these choices. He's the one, these are his classes, these are his decisions. But that was like a really hard moment where he was very direct and like, this is what I'm going to do.
I don't think you ever really did relent. Let's be honest. And that's one of the things I was talking about for myself earlier, where I didn't want to take advice.
Yeah.
He's the same way, but
Mm-hmm.
where I would just not take it and ignore, he would not take it and then prove you wrong. That's his thing.
And he did prove me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
He rocked it. Like, no question, no struggle, no whatever. He totally proved me wrong. But, that letting go and letting your kids make those choices, it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
It is hard. And, I mean, I guess like to wrap this segment up, I think one of the things that I just want to reinforce, if you are in the parenting season of life, if you're looking forward to being the parenting season in life, or if you're empty nesters, like parenting isn't about being perfect. It's just showing up. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to be there in it day in and day out. You're not going to be perfect, but it's how you show up and play the game.
Be there and do your best.
Well, yeah.
I mean.
Yeah. Because your kids aren't going to remember if you got it all right, but they are going to remember if you were there and how you showed up day in and day out.
Yep. This seemed like a lot of advice from us, but if it's you can take it or leave it, but it's good to talk about what we think were successes and failures. So we're going to put it out there, and our family can get a little look at how we grew up while our kids grew up. So
and we're going to bring our boys in this season, and we'll give them an opportunity to speak to this too
on actual microphones.
Yeah.
Not from the door trying to pick up.
No, but we're going to have a conversation with Zach and Toby about, we'll give them an opportunity to respond. How did we do?
Mm-hmm.
What things do you want to take away from your childhood and implement, in your own parenting journeys?
And I'm probably going to find out more things that I didn't know.
And we will all enjoy that.
Oh, boy.
All right. Well, Tim, tell me, last kind of weekly prompt, what are you reading, listening to recently?
This one was easy because my awesome wife took me to Grand Rapids last weekend for a birthday little getaway.
Yeah. Little getaway.
I just did the Jody birthday
You did.
little getaway.
Yeah.
You've tainted all of us
I
in
have.
how we speak. But you actually got it for me for Christmas.
Yes.
But it coincided with my birthday last weekend.
Yes.
Went to see Wilder Woods at the intersection in Grand Rapids. And I don't
Tell people who Wilder Woods is.
It's Bear Reinhardt. He's the lead singer for Need to Breathe, who's in my top 3 of all time bands. So a natural transition there. But we've listened to some of other stuff and watched him on other things.
Wilder Woods is a solo recording name.
And thought it was we thought the show was going to go one way based on things we knew from earlier things, and it just turned into a straight rock show.
It was awesome.
It was fantastic.
So good.
Yep.
Yeah.
So thank you.
You're welcome.
But in response and preparation for that, we listened to a lot of Wilder Woods.
We did. Yeah. It was a really fun weekend. I love, I think coming out of that weekend too, like we both decided, okay, we just need to do more of this. That quick overnight, it was literally just an overnight trip to Grand Rapids, and we could have come home, but it was so nice just to do an overnight and break up the cold, harsh winters in Michigan. So
we say it after every event concert that we go to, and then it just kind of trails off, and we're like,
I have a bunch of bookmarks for us to go through and like other potential events for us to look at over the next year. So
all right,
more coming soon. All right. For me, I obviously was listening to a lot of Wilder Woods, and I'm reading a series that I'm really enjoying right now called Heart's Ridge, H-A-R-T, not H-E-A-R-T. Anyway, it's been fun. I'm on book 6 of 12, I think. So, yeah.
So you'll be done with the series in a week and a half?
Likely.
I don't know how you do that.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been fun. And if you're listening, I would love to encourage you to share some of your parenting moments. What's a piece of parenting advice that made you roll your eyes, or something that you found really valuable? What's your biggest, I had no idea what I was doing moment? We'd love to hear from you.
Anything you want to get off your chest, or anything you want to brag about, take to social.
Yes. Yeah. We'd love to hear from you. Fantastic.
Well, future fam, in case you listen to this someday and we've never met,
we love you.